these businesses, you guys, like you want to get to up 10 grand a month, right? Everyone's like, I have 10 grand a month, 10 grand a month. I want to make my 10 grand a month. Okay. 20 houses, 30 houses, maybe 10 grand a month, but you better hope that HVAC doesn't go out. You better hope you don't have a storm that messes up a corner of the roof, because there goes an entire year of cash flow like that. Brutal.
Sweet. Welcome back to the Bigger Life podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have Daniella Divine on the show. She's helped me with a ton of real estate advice. We've looked at doing partnerships before. She's a big part of the sub 2 community. She's a business owner. She does a little bit of everything. She's an awesome mom. Welcome to the show, Daniella.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben. I feel like I've probably got to know you over the course of almost the last year. It's been like a little less than a year now. And we're both like out on our own, like weaving our way through this madness.
Well, we've done a lot in this year, both of us, but you have packed so much of your journey into such a short amount of time, and I feel like I just got to get caught up on everything just that's happened in the last year, much less everything before that. I mean, Daniela's laughing a little bit because I just sold my house with Creative Finance sub 2, and I hired her to be my transaction coordinator. So she got to laugh at me through the process, calling her like, what do I do? What do I do? And she's a true pro. So.
Oh, no, man. I mean, look, I think that we hear this phrase so often now. It's becoming so much more prevalent. Like if you're getting involved in real estate in any way, you're going to hear the catchphrase creative finance. It might just be the algorithm. I don't know. But you're going to hear it. And it sounds so enticing. And it's hard to learn the intricacies of it. Like it really is. It took me so long to figure out how to transact creatively nationwide, and it's one of those things where I just sort of like put that education in my back pocket, and it's wonderful to be able to share it with whoever needs to utilize those tools, because that's what they are. They're just tools.
Yeah, no, but if you don't have the tools, it's a really necessary thing to have in your tool bag. So we'll get into that later, but I mean, maybe share with me before we met. I know that you have a big impact on you as your father, and he's a business owner, and you kind of came full circle to that. But fill me in on your background. How did you become this person that wants to take on this entrepreneur life?
Oh, man. I don't know if I ever really had a choice. I mean, really, I was the first in my family to go to college and the first in my family to get a master's degree. And so the whole thing was, Daniela's one job in life is to get the piece of paper so she doesn't have to work at the shop, because that's where my dad ended up, and it's not where he wanted to end up, right? So for him, this whole time was, I got stuck in this, and then I had no other options, and it's the job that I hate, but it's the only thing that I know. So I'm going to make sure my kid doesn't have to do that. And he did me that solid, but then the whole time he was educating me on the advantages of having a business without really understanding how advantageous they were for him, right? So I had these seeds planted in me over my childhood. And when I finally got out in the workforce, I was like, I was the kid then who started having informational interviews with adults when I was 5. Be like, so what do you do? Tell me what you do. Right? I was like, how do they have this house? How do they have these things? Because one thing my dad always made sure was not taboo in our house was talking about finances and what certain things cost. And, I couldn't just have another 5 dance classes, because that would mean 5 more tutus and competition fees and recitals and what that would mean for the family. And so for me, I was always like, well, what about these people that can have all these other things? Like, how do they get them? And so when I came out of college, I was like, I'd been ready to work full time forever. I probably had 3 part-time jobs piddled together because no one would hire me full time. I was a kid since I was 16. And I noticed really quickly that no matter how hard I worked, there was always a ceiling. And I always had middle managers. Like I actually had my first middle manager kind of came to me and was like, can you just like
Really?
like slow? And I couldn't. I just couldn't. And so I think I just realized like over the course of trying to figure out what kind of career would be good for me was that I was never really satisfied because I always had a ceiling. And it's like, okay, so now no matter how hard I work, I'm going to run into political issues from people above me that aren't ready for me to move up. And I'm going to run into earning issues because I'm going to outwork them and I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people are probably in that place or could choose to be. I feel like it's really actually heartbreaking to hear that you were ready to go deliver more value and the infrastructure wasn't put in place for you to receive more compensation. Like that's one thing I'm really big on in my companies is like, let's make sure that if we have someone who is willing to create the value, let's make sure that the system isn't set up so that they have a cap or a ceiling. And so it's kind of heartbreaking that you were ready to go contribute to these big companies or whoever it was that you were working with, and they were not ready to, they kind of like you did this hand motion just keeping you down. And what a disservice to that business, but also to you. And I feel like a lot of people experience that, but instead of making the jump and going out on their own, they just decide to deliver less value because they're not getting compensated.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, like, it's all about comfortability, right? And if you are the kind of person, and you'll know this about yourself because you can like kind of audit your life and go back and go, am I constantly in situations where I am uncomfortable? Or do I shirk in the face of discomfort, right? And so for me, it's like, I had to own the fact that the entity I was working for wasn't some magical entity that was set up to serve me and my ambitions.
Yeah.
Like, that's my problem, right? Being high energy, ambitious, all of these things. Like, at the end of the day, the entities I was working for were full of people. And those people had their own limiting day-to-day things. Like one of my first middle managers was a mom of two really young kids. And she's like, I can barely get out the door, much less have enough work prepared for you to do what you need to do. And so I had to own that, like, the end of the day, if I don't have the right people in front of me, I can't push the bus as hard as I want. And that's kind of like asking for a perfect storm. It's kind of unreasonable to expect that.
Well, it sounds like you had to leave that situation. Where did you find yourself? What was your next move once you had that epiphany?
Well, when I graduated from college, it was 2008. And so I thought I was going to walk into like, your entry level job. And I'm on the West Coast in the Bay Area. So this is very relevant when I talk about salary. Like entry level job in 2008 was like 55 grand a year, right? Full benefits, all the things. I thought I was like, that was my future. But it was the Great Recession and that was not probable. So at the time, I couldn't get a job to save my life. And my dad invited me to work at the shop. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm going to do this. Like, I can't believe this, but I cannot move back in with my parents. So I have to have a job. Like, I've got to go make some money. And I started working with him. I started working with him as an admin and trying to figure everything else out. He had no employees, total solopreneur. And my grandmother had started that business in 81. So it was literally my dad, my grandma, me, and the installers. And me just trying to figure out what the heck they'd been doing for the last 35 years.
Wow. Well, it sounds like the textbook, like, hardworking guy. He's making all these sacrifices for you. He doesn't want you to have to, do what he's doing because it sounds like he's kind of self-employed versus like being the entrepreneur and taking it to that next level, right? He's still in the business. He can't leave town. He can't, do anything or else the business shuts down. Is that accurate guess?
a nail on the head. There was never one vacation we took as a family. I'm 38 now, to this day, that the business does not have to shut down. I mean, no one goes in or out of the warehouse. He never even could find himself in a place where he could trust somebody enough to give him the key to the warehouse besides me. So, working and that is why over the course of the years that I did own and operate with him, there were times where I would leave and try something else because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not, how do I scale this? How do I survive in this ecosystem if this is really me, being a partner to my dad for his job? Like this is not really one of those independent companies that you can walk away from. And he's not in a place to let me build that. So what does that look like for me? Like what kind of a future is that for me here? And so, that it was I was with him for almost 15 years, on and off trying to figure out how can we push this forward, and then going out and trying something new and realizing this is never going to work for me here because these people are going to just tell me, you got to wait. You got to slow down. You're already making enough. It was like, no.
Even at your last company.
At my dad was very much like, no, like it's funny, right? Because now, and we'll get to this, but now that I've come full circle and bought this and I've hired someone, they're asking me questions that like I cannot answer, right? Like, so healthcare, so employee handbook. So I'm like, there is nothing, bro. There is nothing. So the whole vibe when I was with my dad, he's like, figure it out. I had to. And I'm going, okay. So how do I get more business? Walk the street, knock on doors. And I was like, wait, there has to be a better way. Yeah. There has to be a better way of doing these things. And he'll tell you, and he has no shame about this. He never really had a mentor that could show him how to take himself out of the business and how to train, which is why he just preferred to never hire. So the business just sort of stayed where it was, which always sort of like inevitably then was like a wonderful income for my dad and my family. But that was it.
Right. A wonderful income with lots of constraints, right? Like at a cost. And so I think you hit on, a key piece, like can't fault him. He didn't have a mentor. He didn't have someone to show him the ropes. And once you get set in your ways for like a couple decades, it's like, oh my gosh, that stacks on top of the fact that you don't have a path, but you don't even have like a way to get out of these habits. It may feel like, right? And so it sounds like you surrounded yourself in circles that had that perspective, that you gained different skills and points of view that helped you push through this. Like what were some of the obviously you're wired this way, so when you found the groups and the people, you jumped right in, but who are they? What groups or people did you connect with that helped you?
Yeah, great question. So when we hit like a little before the pandemic, I was reaching a point with my family where I was like, the income I'm making is not enough. Like this is not making sense. And my dad said, so go sell more. I said, to whom? What kinds of accounts? What? And he's like, dude, go away. Figure this out. I'm busy. I'm fat. Just go away. And general contractors, which we had never done because my dad was really, really risk averse to working underneath a general contractor on commercial projects. The first place I went looking, a lot of these really big GC firms like Clark Construction, Swinnerton, they have in-house like year-long mini MBA programs for subcontractors. And they're essentially trying to mine their future favorite subcontractor and mold them and shape them into how they want to work with them, right? Pretty smart. So I completed one of those year-long programs. I started getting involved in local advocacy groups for small businesses in San Francisco that wanted to work on these big, huge projects. Like, how do we bridge this gap?
Yeah.
I wasn't reinventing the wheel here, right? And I eventually increased the company by 40% in 1 year. And at that point, I was about to take a huge tax hit on my K1.
Okay.
I had always been really interested in real estate, and I didn't know where to start. It's like I can't just go out and buy a home where I live because everything's over $1 million. My K1 won't get me that far. But I have to do something with this money. And so I found Pace Morby. And I was interested in creative finance because I went, all right, well, my K1 doesn't have to go to one house. It could go to many houses if I can understand how to leverage that. And so I got involved in Sub 2, his mentorship. And I started really leaning heavily on talking to people about their journeys, just like I had when I was a kid. You know, like how? I don't understand how. I remember that feeling. I don't know if you've ever been there where you're just like this desperate feeling of I'm talking to the right people, but I still don't understand how I'm supposed to do this.
Okay. Well, I wanna talk about the how, but first, like that Pace Morby group, I met Pace before I realized how big of a deal he is, but he is the real deal. And one thing that everyone that works with Pace has in common is freaking energy. Like, I don't know why. Like, I've been around other communities where people are smart and they are successful, but everyone brings an energy in Pace's group. And I love the way that Pace like challenges like the status quo. People that want to like push the envelope a little bit tend to gravitate towards Pace. Like, why can't I do a deal this way? Why can't I write up a contract this way? Right? Like, to me, that just fires me up. Like, I'm in a storage group. I don't have the Sub 2 need as much. We do a lot of creative deals in storage, but
Oh yeah, you do.
I just really enjoyed connecting. So you got in the group, you got around the people, but what was the bridge that you gapped to figure out the how?
Oh man, well, I am a bit of an ethnographer. And what that means is essentially when I get interested in something, like I like go hard. I have to know every angle. And it's a part of the fact that I'm honestly kind of a conservative investor and I feel scared, right? Like this is my way of mitigating my own fear. And in hindsight, like mitigating my own risk. So what I did is I kept talking to people about all these deals, right? And I'm seeing these deals and I'm like, these deals suck. Like, I would never buy one of these. If I bought one, like, what am I missing? I don't get it. Like, where's the allure here? And so I started to learn how to become a creative transaction coordinator. And that is like a totally different, weird offshoot of basically being a transaction coordinator for residential transactions, which is really an admin. You're sitting there and you're helping the agent hit critical deadlines. You're making sure everything is signed on the contracts. Well, in creative, it's very rare to have an agent involved. And if they are involved, they don't understand what the heck we're doing, right? It's much more of a consultative role. It's a coaching role. And I am licensed in California. And so I kind of had to level that up even more so by going, I have to really make sure that I'm clean on these things because my license is at risk. So I started doing those transactions from folks in the community. Like people would reach out to me from all my informational interviews and they'd go, can you TC this for me? And finally, I had 2 other gals that were doing it too. We co-founded a nationwide company and we started doing like hundreds of nationwide creative transactions. And so that helped me figure out, how are these people doing this? What contracts? Where? VA loans, FHA loans, hybrids, lease options. Well, in Texas, you technically can't do that. That's illegal. Like there's all these little intricacies. And so my main mission, Ben, was just to figure out, how do I transact creative legally nationwide? When does it make sense? Because most of the time it doesn't. What contracts do I have to use? Who do I have to reach out to? Where are my attorneys, my title and escrow company? So I just built my little like Rolodex toolkit and I go, okay, cool. Like now I don't even really transact, but rarely anymore. But I know what I've got, like my arsenal. Like I had to build my toolbox,
Oh yeah. I mean, you're an expert on structure and making sure you get the boxes checked and do the thing right, so I got to give a plug here because I want to make sure everyone listening understands how much value this can bring. So we just barely moved this last year and we were trying to sell our house, but we knew that we want $700,000 out of our house. and we realized, okay, it's a buyer's market. There's no chance we're getting it, especially with a buyer having to stare down a 7% interest rate when we have a 3.75 on the property.
Yeah.
And so if we want to get our 6-figure plus of equity out of this property, we have to we have to sell our interest rate as a commodity. Basically, the interest rate is for sale. That's what they're buying, not necessarily like the house, which is a big, like, mind-blowing thing for people that aren't familiar with this.
Yeah.
But we found someone who understood the value of that interest rate, and we basically set up, he's going to give us 6 figures today and then 25 grand in a year, and he gets his low interest rate. We get what we want. And the coolest part about it, you guys, was Daniela handled the whole thing. So you changed our life. I mean, it's like a big deal that we got tens of thousands more from calling you than if we didn't have you. So I hope anyone trying to sell their house, we'll make sure that we get the contact info. But that's my personal experience just a couple months ago. So thanks, Daniela.
Yeah, of course, man. Like, it's weird, right? It's a totally off-market, off-brand way to transact. But these days, more so than ever, life events occur. They always have. And sometimes you're up against an even more challenging wall than you were, where it's like, hey, I had to move, or I got restationed in the military and now my house is just sitting there empty and I've got to carry 2 mortgages. There's situations where it really, really makes sense to do what you guys did. And I'm really glad you got to recover all of that equity cost, because that's why we do this, right? You buy real estate to build appreciation and create equity so that you can further your goals. So.
Oh, yeah. And it's so fun to be able to tell people that I sold with creative finance, because usually I'm the one calling you up,
Right? Buying.
begging you to buy on creative finance. And we've done about half of our storage facilities on creative finance, and it's enabled us to pay our sellers way more, right? And so to be on the seller side and now to be able to say, like, look, this is not just something that works for just buyers or just sellers. This is a win-win for everybody. That feels good to me to know, oh yeah, like what I'm begging people to do for me, it really helped me out to do it for someone else. So
you got to practice what you preach.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. So I love that world. I feel like that's a business that you didn't plan on getting yourself into, but talk about just like finding where you can go create value and where there's demand and filling a need. And you guys have done really well at that.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really big pace-ism, right? And I mean, when you get to talking to people that do things at a high level, to them, it's so granular. It becomes so black and white because they've already waddled their way through like the muck of how hard all of this is. But it really is like, hey, there's a gap in the market. It needs a service or a product. Go create the service or the product. Create a brand with credibility and trust. Do the thing. Do it right. And keep doing it. And don't stop. Don't stop. And I think that's like the hardest part about these mentorships. I have to stop looking at Pace's Facebook, because every freaking day, like, I'm seeing people I know, love, and trust do rad things that are not for me right now, right? Like, I had to pick something and stick with it. Like, for almost 2 years, all I did was creative transactions. Did I want to acquire? Of course. Did I want to buy a business? Of course. Did I want to do X, Y, and Z? Of course. But that was not the mission. The mission was to like close that loop. And now that loop's closed and I can move on to something else. And so, I actually was talking to somebody about this recently. Our TC company, one of the things that I realized a gap we could fill was we were working with these investors who had multiple businesses, and they were just totally a mess. They were emotionally like suffering from the weight of like disorganization and strategy and focus. And I was like, oh my God, like I ran a business for over a decade with like the messiest guy, my dad. I feel like I can help you. And I always would walk around our warehouse going, I really wish I could just be the Gordon Ramsay of businesses. Like, go in, fix, leave, and come back if you need me, you know? And so we started this fractional chief operating officer service, and it wasn't widely marketable because not enough investors were making enough net profit to really support that level of support, but a couple were. And we really changed the way they did business. And so I always figured out what was a need by having informational interviews. I reached out to these guys cold and was like, audio, always audio. They want to hear your voice. And if you're ballsy enough, video, cold send videos and just go, hey, I'm Daniella Divine. Like, this is what I'm working on. The product and the service isn't perfect, but you can contribute to what it's going to look like for me. Will you please give me 30 minutes of your time? I'm going to walk you through what I'm working on. And based on what you already have going on, can you help me refine this so that I can actually put this out to market? And every single person I asked helped me.
Wow. So go in deeper on this. So when you start this, you say fractional operating officer, and you're creating cold video, and what is it that you're expecting or hoping for back from these people?
Pause. I want them to think about their businesses and if this service even makes sense for them. Because if their interest is piqued in any way, they want to talk about what they're doing. They want to talk about what they're doing because more than likely they are overwhelmed, overstressed, and have way too much going on to help them create a firm, focused strategy for the next quarter, much less the next year, right? So I want to hook their interest and have them understand that sometimes by just talking to me for a half an hour for free is going to help them. It's going to add value to them, even though the undertone of that entire pitch is me refining my service based off of what these folks actually need. And so from those interviews, I was able to go, oh, we can tailor this. This is going to look different for different people. Some people can afford hourly. Some people can afford 3 months. Some people want 6 months. We even had somebody ask for a year contract.
Nice.
You know, so it's like different people at different times need different things, but the entire message is the same. It just looks different at different points in your business.
Okay, so now I think we're getting closer to the timeline where I met you. When did you start this company? And was there anything in between your transaction coordinator business and this business?
No. So oddly enough, right, at this exact time, everything is starting to implode at my dad's. Like, we're coming out of COVID. We're 50% down on gross revenue. I've worked my tushy off. And his whole thing is the carrot. Well, just sell more. Just sell more. Just sell more. And we can hire. But the problem is he's never really ready to hire. So I just buried myself in 75 jobs with no help. And I'm in this pace world at the same time. And there's all this stuff mucking at my brain. And like, you know, like the wheels are turning. And I'm going, wait a minute. I don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this. And it's because I don't have another entrepreneurial endeavor outside what my father has built. So started doing this TC thing as a side hustle. And the side hustle snowballed. And that's when I decided to take a step back from my dad's business and go, you know what? I don't think this is what I want to do anymore. But what I didn't understand then was this is not the way I can do this. And you're kind of in the way. You know, it was like, I need to let you finish your job here with this business because we can't work together like on the path that I'm on because I don't want this to just be a job. Right. So, the TC thing, I was started in 2022 and it just sort of took off and, you know, we offered different services. We served different clients. We did a lot of transactions. And I actually earlier this year took a step back from that company and it's still like growing and building and epic. And I keep throwing all of my personal business over there because I really believe in what they do. But again, my personal mission changed.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Oh, yeah. How does that conversation come up with your dad? Because that's what you've been working on lately. It's so fun for me to follow your content and see the journey. But how does that come up with your dad? All right, dad, like, are you ready? Or did he approach you?
Oh my gosh. So it's such a trip, right? when I like did this TC thing, I was like, okay, like TCing's great, but the margin's not there. Like this is not a scalable business for me myself. And so that's why I pulled in the fractional COO stuff, because I'm like, I can provide higher margin, higher ticket stuff, right? And so explored what that looked like. And that had its own thing going. But really, again, ethnographer, I decide I don't want houses. Get all of the houses away from me. I want commercial real estate. So I know now how to transact creatively. But I don't know anything about commercial real estate other than the industrial facilities I grew up like managing through this flooring company.
Yeah.
So I get my license and I become a commercial broker. And so I'm TCing and I'm building myself as a commercial broker, right? And figuring out what asset classes I want to focus on. And again, like this is all in the endeavor of building something for my family, right? And so my dad wants to retire and he goes, will you be my broker? Can you list my building for lease? Like I'm ready. Like he can't sell it then because it's a job. There's nothing to sell but his phone number. And he's getting so offended every time people approach him to sell the business because they don't want to give him anything. And he's like it's so emotional for him, you know? So, I list his business. I list the building. He's like, I'm shutting the business down. It's fine. Let's roll it up. I'm like, great. Okay, cool. No emotion from me. Nothing. I'm like, that's fine. I got my thing going. My thing is scalable. I understand my thing. Your thing is your thing. Let's just keep it moving, right? And so we're not getting a ton of interest on his lease. And it's because industrial facilities in the city of San Francisco have gotten soft. They've gotten soft, like as a post-pandemic, consequence kind of thing. A lot of people left the city. And finally, I get somebody in there. She pulls up in a red Tesla. She's a couple years younger than me. And she's like, I start touring, right? She's like, I want the business and the building. And I'm like, really? Okay, that's great. Like, tell me what experience you have. Like, where are you coming from? She had just bought her first company, flooring, 2 hours away, and it was like exploding. And she bought like a big company, like 70 employees, the whole thing, right? And so I leave and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is going to be great for my dad. Like he's actually going to get somebody to buy the business at a great rate. And he calls me and he goes, this is your last chance. And I'm like, dude, why do you keep pulling? Like, just like, let it go, you know? He's like, Daniela, like, why would I sell it to her when I could sell it to you? Like this is like, you helped build this thing, all this stuff, right? And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, like, this is a complete hard left from everything I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I bring it to my partners because we had been underwriting self-storage for 8 months. That's how you and I got in touch. And we started thinking about other home-based businesses that you can actually survive on. And we started just exploring this, right? And I go, guys, like, I don't really think I want to do this, but I feel like I have to put this in front of you. And I'm really curious about your feedback on this. And within 30 seconds, they were like, this is stupid. We should do this. This is a crazy deal. Like, we should do this. And so that was in January.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. And so I guess introduce us to your partnership. I think that's important, who's in it and what roles does everybody play?
Yes. So I'm partners with Chris Geddes and Landon Moore. And I had known them for the last 3 years because I was their TC for their wholesale companies. So we had gone through some really crazy deals together and we worked through very stressful and challenging situations with each other. I got to date them before I dated them, kind of thing. And I think that is so important because partnerships are so hard. And Landon is really like sales, acquisitions, marketing. Chris is an ex-Googler, so he is all systems, automations, tech stack. Like he's process oriented in the most beautiful way. I am not. So if I'm sitting there spinning my wheels on a problem, he goes, oh, like he can just beautiful mind it and go, this is how we need to do this. And I'm like, thank you. Perfect. So, they're taking on roles that frankly, like would be hard for me. hard for me because I'm just like not naturally inclined or something that I don't want to die on a sword for. And I didn't want to do this by myself because I've got 3 young kids. You know, I'm working towards other long-term things, and I didn't want this to become what it was for my dad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Gotta keep that time carved out for your kids for sure.
Yeah.
And okay, so you guys are saying, all right, the partnership's on board. Let's go back to dad. And what's next? I mean, I want to hear the succession.
Oh God. Like,
Get that.
so I started negotiating with my dad, which is so ridiculous. I can't even tell you. Like, and the worst part is he's good. Like, he is a shrewd long-term investor. He understands margin. He understands all of it, right? And he's a seller that obviously thinks what he has is worth more than it is, right? So I had to combat both things with a lot of kindness and just figure out, like, how do we make this happen? How do we make this happen? So he did something wonderful for us. He sold it to us on one-time earning. Very hard to fail when you buy a business at one-time earning. A sign of a seller willing to sell at one-time earning for anyone here who's interested in buying businesses is that the business is kind of a you-know-what show. Fact.
Sure.
Correct. Right? You're buying something that has an existence in this world, but that you have to build to actually make work the way you need to make it work. So you pay you get the deal, but you pay premium in another way. We negotiated half seller finance and half private capital, and we got into some really challenging areas when it came to capital raising, because when you buy a business that has no land, how do you secure your lenders? Self-storage, you can secure them on the land, right? Like, I'm not securing somebody on a business is a hope and a dream. You have an insane amount of trust when you secure somebody with a UCC1 on a business entity. You're basically going like, hey, I need you to believe in me to such a large extent that this business will not go under. But when it's attached to property, they can at least take that property back. They have something in the game, real. This business didn't have that. And what made it worse is it's an S Corp. It's been an S Corp for 45 years. And so you cannot attach UCC1s to S Corps. All you can do is sell stock. Well, the stock was already diluted by the amount of partners. And so it became really challenging to figure out, how do we raise money? How do we make this work? And at the end of the day, we did a great raise. We had a commitment, but the attorney that represented the lender didn't understand what was happening. And the lender wasn't super experienced, and the deal fell apart at the end. So I ended up approaching a very good friend of mine who has a company called Everbridge Capital, and they provide bridge loans to SBA. And so we're like rewriting the whole thing and going SBA now, which, again, pain in the tuchus, but huge lesson learned for this kind of business acquisitions and the limitations that you face with S Corps. Like, I never knew any of this stuff. So I basically had to spend like 6 weeks working through the purchase and sale agreement with lawyers, stockholder agreements. I mean, probably like $8,000 in just paperwork before anything happened. Then we went, okay, well, we can't close until August 31st. So it's not officially ours until August 31st, but we can't wait. We have to hire a GM and have them training all summer with my dad, because that GM is going to be the person that's going to allow me to not be my dad. Yeah. Right? And the company can afford them. So let's give the company the best shot forward. So 140 applicants, over 70 interviews.
Did you interview all 70?
I interviewed almost all 70. I kid you not. That was 3 weeks. It was like the push of my life. And we found the guy. He accepted. He left a very good job. So I am like deeply invested in his success. And he starts on the 14th with my dad. So I'm like, dude, it's been like one freaking cement wall down at a time, but it's actually happening, which is encouraging.
I love this kind of story. Gets me fired up. I mean, the journey of a business is so much more time and energy intensive. I feel like it's worth zooming out a little bit for our audience and maybe just like, in case most people might have some idea, but businesses trade on different multiples, right? And so you can use this to your advantage as you are going through this journey of being an entrepreneur or wanting to get into business ownership. But a business like mine, for example, like I was asked just this morning, a couple hours ago, like, so like, do you know what your business is worth? Right? It's like a moving company is probably worth 1 time's earnings. Now the moving company is feeding everybody, right? Like it's legit cash flow, and that's why you do it. But the thing about it is to systematize a service business to the point that it needs to trade on, let's just say 3 times earnings.
Oh my God.
Work. And that's what Daniela is describing is like her dad's business. Without her dad, the amount of risk that goes into it is so astronomically high compared to when he's in it. Right. So that's why her dad can't sell for 3 times net income, is because there's so much work. It's a pain. I tell people, like, I used to have people sign non-competes for my moving company when they came to work for me. Now I'm like,
What's the point?
You would be a psychopath to try to run a moving company. Like, obviously, like I'm married to it because I started it and I love it. I enjoy it and I'm fulfilled in it. But if I was to have to start over, man, I'd probably start over something different, right?
I would never start a business like this, ever.
Right. And I mean, this flooring company, it sounds like, I don't know anything about flooring, but it sounds very similar, right?
It is very similar. And like flooring in high level perspective is a completely antiquated business. You still have mom and pop owners, much like self-storage, that are doing everything on paper, right? So there's been some movers and shakers that have tried to disrupt the industry by bringing in tech and all these things. And most of these folks just can't do it because they're aging out owners. So there's an advantage and a disadvantage here, right? One, you can get businesses that have great reputations, contracts, guaranteed cash flow.
Yeah.
But they're going to look a lot different than any other business you're going to buy. And two, there's not a lot of opportunity for people in the flooring industry. So I noticed that when I was interviewing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're same age as me, late 30s, early to mid 40s, and you want more. And you can't get more because the VP and the owner are never leaving. And they're not giving you that runway. So for me, like the biggest thing in my interviews, Ben, was if you come to work for Peacock, you will never have an income cap here. I will listen to all your ideas. If you want to push revenue and growth, you will be the immediate benefactor of that revenue and growth because I'm not willing to do it. So you should be compensated for that level of growth you bring the company. But more so, I'm building in that loyalty. Like I want to build in future owners of the company so I can step back and do the things that I'm super excited to do, you know? And this will have been an adventure on a long road of adventures. Like this isn't going to be the thing that defines me, but this process is inevitable and it's replicable across every freaking investment and business that any of the people watching are involved in.
It sure is. I mean, I love the spirit of no ceiling, right? Like to me, that is the most important thing you could tell someone that's working with you is, look, there is no ceiling for you. You create value. My job as the visionary, and that's what you are as well, is to make sure that this umbrella expands, right? And it's said, a lot of people say this, but have a dream so big that other people's dreams can fit inside. And that's why with our executives, we do vesting shares and profit sharing, right? Is so that people have that limitless growth and they don't have to take the risk of starting a business. They can come in, be your GM, and as they grow, the business will grow proportionately. And so I think there's so many like gold nuggets in what you just said, like with your team. I think this is a great blueprint for someone who wants to be successful and make the amount of money that you wanted to make when you were working for someone else and you feel like you had a ceiling. Is look for a business that you can buy at a low multiple but is very good at cash flow, right? Because your cash cow is going to be what fuels the rest of your life, your retirement, all your passive investments. You have to have that cash flow to fuel the rest of what you want to do. And so the fact that you found this, it happened to be your dad's, but anyone could find a business where a boomer is retiring.
Oh, yeah.
They're basically looking at, I have to either walk away and just close up shop, or they have to give it away for cheap. And similar to you, how after I got into underwriting storage deals, I mean, I'm still buying them. But after underwriting a few of them and realizing I'm paying 20 times net income for this business and it's worth it, I'm going to keep doing it because of all the great things, the cash flow appreciation, tax benefits. We're not saying that we're going to stop investing in commercial real estate, but I could pay 20 times net income for real estate, or I could pay 1 times net income. And I bought 2-3 moving companies for dirt cheap. And yeah, there's not a whole lot there, but it's paid off for itself. I promise you that. And it sounds like you guys are on the same journey. So I think it's just relevant to someone who's looking for a path forward is don't be afraid of that blue collar business that's trading at a low multiple on a discount. So
no, these businesses, you guys, like the margins in this business are 35 to 55%. I mean, that's crazy when you think about somebody that amasses the pain and like this is totally legit too. But you want to get that 10 grand a month, right? Everyone like, hi, 10 grand a month, 10 grand a month. I want to make my 10 grand a month. Okay. 20 houses, 30 houses, maybe 10 grand a month, but you better hope that HVAC doesn't go out. You better hope you don't have a storm that messes up a corner of the roof, because there goes an entire year of cash flow like that. Businesses aren't like that, which is why they're very attractive, and I completely agree with you. I learned very quickly. I started the TC company. Brutal. So hard to grow that company. I offered amazing service. I still have people coming back and begging me to do their files. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
I like your last one. Because I like your last one. You did have kind of from your heart.
We were one of the last ones where I was like, I got to stop doing this.
Thank you. It means a lot. You saved me a lot of stress.
But and you go through this path, right? Where I'm like, I don't really want to scale this TC company. I love commercial brokerage. I love doing deals. I love looking for my own deals. But guess what? I can't go buy $5 million in commercial assets without a healthy active income, because if something goes wrong in a commercial deal, I will be really upside down. So I need that active cash flow. We've talked about this so many times. The active cash flow is not the commercial deals that you buy on the front end, right? It's the equity event, the 5 to 7 year term, the flip, the whatever it is. And so unless you are in a place in your life where you have enough income for your family, all of that is sort of neither here nor there. So going back to my dad's business was an opportunity for me to bring my active cash flow back to where it was, frankly, a couple years ago when I first got into real estate, and go, okay, great. I understand creative finance. I understand commercial real estate. I understand what kind of assets I want to buy. I understand how to force NOI, and when pro forma is BS. I know how to write OMs. I know how to do all these things now. And now I'm going to build this company to have enough active income for me that I can go and buy these commercial assets and not feel the level of fear and risk that I would if I didn't have a bank account flush with like money to help when things go wrong, because they will.
Yeah. So if you didn't hear it, that's the same recipe I follow. Cash cow first, and then park it in commercial real estate. And that's the Daniella Divine model as well. So thank you. I think you put it in a way that, everyone needs to hear it and a couple times and then it'll click. But I mean, now you're a broker. That's one of your main focuses. Tell me what's on your mind these days. Like you have this GM. Well, okay, actually, before we go into what's next, I actually want to, if you don't mind, ask about this GM.
Yeah.
What were your criteria, and like, what would you recommend to someone else who's hiring maybe this GM or CEO or COO, like person that's going to be the person running the business for them? What do you look for, and what are the do's and don'ts in that process?
This was a huge learning lesson for me because I haven't hired a ton of people in my life. And I will completely, like, humbly admit that I went into this with a very clear picture of what I thought I needed, and it completely changed after every single interview, which was so annoying for my poor partner.
Hey, this isn't the guy.
I know, right? And like, this is okay, maybe that's not so important anymore. But I had a very firm understanding because I work in this business of what it needed to operate on a day to day. So I'm like, what skill sets do I need this man to have or woman so that I don't have to come in every single day because I've got like a 1-year-old on my hip and 2 other boys and all the things, right? So what I noticed and what I would say was the biggest impact is, we got over 140 applicants, which really isn't that much. When you think about it, there's jobs out there where there's thousands of applicants. We listed on Indeed, which was totally worth the couple $100 it cost to have the job up there. The right candidates reshape the scope of the job by the questions they ask. They taught me what I needed. They showed me what the job needed to be. They showed me what the next year is going to look like. I had a picture of it in my mind, but I had people come from shops that had done this before. Wow. Young guys that came in and they were like the bootstrap of the whole company. And now they've reached the ceiling. They've got nowhere to go. They've got families and they want more.
Yeah.
And so they were able to show me what I didn't know because I didn't have a flooring mentor. This is my dad, and he'll admit his own limitations. So, I waited for the candidates to help me rewrite, and I realized these are the leaders. Like, these are the guys that can actually help me accomplish this.
Oh, I love that. So their questions were more telling you about their vision and their implementation strategy for the next 12 months. And based on what you heard from them, that kind of gave you your answer of who you're going to choose as the candidate.
Yes, it got us to our top 2 for sure. And then the top 2, it was like culture. Who can we work with better to accomplish these things? And that is really hard, really hard.
What is the culture?
The culture is extreme accountability because that's what it takes to survive in business. No ego, extreme accountability. And being grateful, right? Like, we want to work hard. We want to grow. We want to win, but we want to be healthy. Like, we're not trying to have like an unhealthy environment here. This isn't Wolf of Wall Street. We're trying to like survive this, right? And thrive, right? We want an attitude of gratitude and we want to survive. And like, that's one thing that Landon always says is like attitude of gratitude. I've never really practiced gratitude that much in a day-to-day way. And it's important because it's what helps you get through the mundane, unforgiving 97% of businesses.
I love it. I love that you got to your top 2 off of, capabilities, vision, strategy, things like that. And then your tiebreaker was, values, basically. And I think we hire way more off of, and this is probably something I should probably hire more off of like experience and resume, but I just like meet a person and I get a feel for who they are and what their values are. And that's like, I'll figure the rest out. You're on the team. We'll shuffle hats later, but
I think that's a highly successful way to go. And the reason why we didn't lead with that first was because I knew I was limited in my ability to train. Like, that was a personal thing where I was like, oh man, if I had no kids and it was me, I'd go, I'm going to pick the person I could work best with and go, I'm going to teach you everything I know. We're going to build this together. But I have extreme accountability. I have to be accountable to my limitations in my day-to-day life and sort of trying to figure out what is the best way forward. Like, how can we accomplish this? How do we do this? How?
Yeah. Well, I love getting a sneak peek on the process, and it's going to be an exciting month with him starting up. So
yeah,
what's on your mind? Like, what are your goals and what are things that you're wanting to see happen the rest of the year and in the future?
Well, everything's a mess and nothing exists at the same time. And we have large government contracts that we have over the next couple years. So my main thing is like stabilization of house accounts. We have to continue to take care of the people that we know we have guaranteed income with. 2, we need to go through this warehouse and liquidate as much as we can. Anything that's dead stock or is dying or has no place is eating up very, very, very expensive square footage. And I know because I'm the broker that negotiated that deal.
Real estate as well, right? It's not just the business.
It's just the business because my dad owns the real estate. So my dad worked this out where his whole thing was, if I buy my building and I pay it off, that's my retirement. As his entire retirement. So this entire building nets around $35,000 a month. And that's substantial. That's more than enough for retirement. And so the deal was we lease from him in his facility for the first 3 years. And then I can, if I need to backfill the space as a broker, I can, if we want to move on to something somewhere else. But we have advantages in the city and county of San Francisco. I'm a 3rd-gen San Franciscan. We have certifications that allow for us to be more competitive in bids. So we don't want to leave the city. Like this footprint, we don't want to leave this footprint yet. We want to see if we can make this footprint work, And so it's about cleaning up the footprint, inventorying things that we're bringing in like tech, automations, AI, CRMs, like nothing has ever been done like this. So a lot of it is just going, how do we get the GM comfortable enough to run day-to-day operations and stabilize house accounts while we transition into a business that's more modern, and then we go after the development, the business development goals that we have, which are grounded and rooted in, what we are really good at. And so those things take time, which is good because we have a lot to do. So it's really like, I need to make sure I don't scare this poor man away.
Like, where do I sign up? We gotta go March right now. Let's go.
Right? And so it's exciting. Like it's super duper exciting. And I mean, I have been in that warehouse so many times, been surrounded by hundreds of thousands of dollars of material that I ordered for massive projects, pallets, seas of pallets, and just gone, how am I going to do this by myself? How am I possibly going to do this? How do I make sure I don't bankrupt this business? How do I make sure I don't fail on this project? Like absolute moments of just like panic, tears, everything. Like I'm going to die under the weight of this warehouse by myself. And now I'm going from a place of doing things by myself to 4 highly intelligent, highly motivated people. And I'm just really excited to focus on that energy shift and transition while making sure everyone just remains excited. Like I don't want this to be a baton death march, even though inevitably a little bit it will be.
Oh my goodness. I mean, the vision that you have for your partnership is big though, because you have a path, right? You know where you're going. You know what you have to do. Like you have a fast answer when you're like, what am I doing the next 6 months? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I got it all lined up, right? So I think that having that path, even though it sounds like it's daunting, but you've mapped it out, you've set up the team, and you guys are on your way. I feel like that gives you working and just putting once you have the plan in place, putting your head down and going to work is just the best remedy for all your stress and problems is just working hard and then letting the chips fall where they may, right?
It's true. I mean, everybody hates to hear this, and it doesn't really matter who you listen to for motivation. The advice is always the same, but I'm a fan of Hormozy because he's just he makes everything as unsexy as possible. And he's like, it's just the work, the success is in the work. You just have to do the work. If you're wholesaling, you have to cold call. If you're in real estate, you have to cold call and cold email, and you face rejection, and it just becomes like another move on.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep going.
It's inspiring. I love the direction your company is going, and people can still reach out to you and have you as a broker, right? And
absolutely. Yeah.
Tell us more about your goals as an investor and a broker.
Yeah. So I love doing deals. Like I love commercial real estate so much. I am a firm believer that one deal can really change your life. And
commercial. That's not true for residential, but it is commercial.
Yes, it is. And so, I mostly focus on commercial and retail. So I'm doing tons of like ground up development and quick service restaurants, national credit tenants like, Burger King and folks like that. And so I've gotten really into strip malls. And oddly enough, like that's where my focus is with my principal. And I finally have understood how to really push NOI and like the extreme benefit of just knowing how to be really talented at commercial leasing. So there's 17 different lease structures in commercial real estate. And there's one that benefits the landlord the most in this particular asset class. And just working with folks that have like that national credit, they essentially what that means is they're traded on the US stock exchange. So for whatever reason, that particular location that a franchisee bought or whatever it is goes belly up, you have the financial backing of the overall corporate structure and company. So as a landlord doing ground leases or, selling pad sites, like basically parking spots in your strip center, we're talking about like quadrupling what you purchased it for. And now that I'm finally understanding that, again, so unsexy, right? Like the value is in releasing and bringing in good tenants, something that no fancy commercial broker really wants to do, right? Like they want to be selling office buildings and high rises. But strip malls, they remind me a lot of self-storage, and you get to affect local business owners. So my whole thing is like, I really want to help businesses get into assets that they own because I understand what that did for my dad. I understand what that's going to do for his retirement. And I understand what the stability that brings to your business. And so, I love working with people on and helping businesses get into assets that they own. And for me, when it comes to commercial, I think I own a car wash. I bought that a couple months ago. Love the car wash asset. Love strip malls. Love self-storage. But, it's one of those things where I go, I want to revisit that in a year when I have too much money and I have to push it somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you can't do everything. Yeah, like you can't do everything, guys. Like, and like, don't, like, this is like my imparting message to everybody here. Focus on something and focus on that thing for a while before you switch gears. The riches are in the niches and consistency is key. So just don't give up. Wait for the right deal. There is another one around the corner. I promise. But you can't buy the deal unless your personal financial picture is super healthy. You just can't. Can you get in with none of your own money? Yes. Can you get in creatively with no banks? Yes. Can you do all these things? Yes. I've transacted hundreds of these deals. But you can't hold without money. That's the ticker.
Wow.
You can't hold without money.
I love it. I think it's a lot of people need to have that reality check. And I think that's a great way to kind of cap it. I think you're a great example of living the bigger life. Like the fact that you've taken on so much, like rattled off way more different types of businesses that you've ventured into, but also the fact that you have come to the realization like, no, I need to put my head down for a period of time and dial this in. And I feel like that's maybe lost a little bit on a lot of the people today that are listening to, whoever's telling them what's next is like, hey, find something that will work and stick with it and get it going before you jump to the next thing. And I feel like it's a great message. I love how you're doing all of these things while still putting motherhood first. I think that to me is the most mind-blowing part, that you have such a great, for lack of a better word, balance, that you're still dedicating your weekends and nights to your kids. And so I just thank you so much for bringing so much value on today, Daniela.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Like I've had so much fun getting to know you, and I can't wait to work with your team in the future. I can't wait to revisit self-storage with a totally different mindset and just like different place in my life. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to share all this fun stuff with your audience. I appreciate it.
It was a blast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at the Daniella Divine, 2 L's, Devine. And I'm around, so I can be reached. Yeah, I'm on YouTube as well. I'm trying to share a little bit more granularly about like business transitions and operations and specifically like commercial deals, because it seems like everyone wants to know a little more. So
Very relatable, practical content. Thanks for bringing so much value today, Daniela.
yeah, thanks, Ben.